Afternoon. It's Matt Hayes, the Airbnbs with Real Estate and Whiskey. And I got my buddy here, Marck de Lautour out of Kansas City, Missouri. Met Mark a year ago. Awesome guy. As soon as I joined Collective Genius, opened us with welcome arms. And I appreciate you being on here today, dude. I really do.
Matt, no worries. I know I've been in the country a long time when I get introduced as Mark from Kansas City, right?
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. Okay. So where's homeland for you?
Yeah, no, from New Zealand originally, but no, it's fair. I've lived in Kansas City longer than I've lived in New Zealand, so that sounds crazy to say out loud, but yeah, it's been a while.
So how long? When did you move to Kansas City? When was that?
Freshman year of university. So I was a pretty decent tennis player. Didn't want to give up the dream, and used that to kind of springboard over to the States. Came over here, played Division I tennis for University of Missouri here in Kansas City. Had a great little run, but used that to kind of get my undergrad and my MBA. And then when I was getting my MBA, I flipped a house, and it was kind of love at first flip.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's kind of all of us, man. We get that first win and we kind of get hooked on a lot of things. But that's awesome, man. Well, you're doing some pretty cool shit in Kansas City. You've amassed quite a bit of portfolio. You're helping people get into real estate investing. Kind of give me a little bit of rundown. Obviously, that was your first flip, but what was the transition that you went through that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I would call myself today a real estate financial advisor of sorts. As a turnkey provider, I find myself in the position of advising people how to diversify and grow a portfolio of cash flowing assets. Back in 2001, flipped my first house, and had strong financial backing from a couple of individuals. So we were able to scale and grow that pretty quickly. When the market turned in 2008, that led to a business divorce for me. So, quick ramp up, making a lot of active income, building a ton of passive income, but then went through this ugly business divorce that kind of put those properties on the side, and I was left there saying, how do I go back and build myself back up? And what I realized was the benefit to the last 8 years of this long run that I had was I was the operator of the business. I was the executor of all the processes and procedures and the fundamentals of flipping. And so all I did was really just start up, create my own LLC and start buying, not in the LLC with my other business partners, but just in my own, and was able to kind of recreate what I had done. The core competency for me at the time was buying on the courthouse steps. So we bought quite literally hundreds and hundreds of homes on the courthouse steps for almost 2 decades, from 01 to 2017. And that was really the cornerstone for me to grow my own personal wealth as well as help others, was buying extremely discounted homes on the courthouse steps, then rehabbing them, flipping some, holding some. But my portfolio was kind of birthed and grew out of just buying massively discounted homes for a long period of time and holding on to the vast majority of those. So then, when the market turned, I started just doing it for other people. Banks weren't lending in 2009, 10, 11. As you know, they were really skittish on single family. And so we pivoted by using other people's cash to just say, hey, look, I've got a deal here. Do you want to become a landlord? And I started recognizing a need or a hole in the market where I believe that investors had I think the real estate industry in general had done a really poor job over the last 50 years of catering to investors that want to invest in real estate, but they don't have the knowledge of how to do so. So they just default to the stock market. And I think that that's gambling. I've never understood the stock market. I feel if you're not on the inside, you're on the outside. And so for me, real estate made sense. I can see it, touch it, feel it. It has utility. You can live in it. You can rent it. You can Airbnb it. You can sell it. You've got many, many avenues within the single family game in and of itself. So we were able to, scale and start buying a lot of property on the back of other people trying to utilize our services to grow their own portfolio.
That's awesome. So what was that? What was that time frame? Was that before or after the crash, or that?
After the crash. So from 2001 to 2008, I was buying, rehabbing, flipping, and then holding You know, a lot of homes. I think we only did, I don't know, 300 in about 7 years, something like that. But then, you know, like I say, the business that we just had kind of got put on the shelf. And so those rentals, you know, got put on the side. We didn't continue it through the crash. So during the downturn, there was so many foreclosures. Real estate was on sale at 50% off. And the irony is when Walmart and Target have a sale 50% off, the masses go rushing. But when real estate has a sale 50% off, everyone's like, oh, I would never touch real estate. And so I just found that ironic. And I was, you know, young enough and dumb enough at the time to say, hey, this could be my once in a lifetime opportunity. So I just tried to buy as much as I could and utilize other people's capital to partner with them, do JV deals, and build my wealth back up again.
So that was, I was cutting my teeth in that world from 08 to 12. Luckily, we didn't have a whole lot of stuff that went down. We did have some weathered the storm, but my biggest regret during that downturn was that I didn't buy enough. And I'm sure every real estate investor goes through that.
Yeah, said every real estate investor ever, right? I mean, one of my kind of catchphrases, if you will, or things I'm known for saying is that I've yet to meet a 70-year-old white-haired real estate investor that says, I wish I didn't own those 200 doors that I currently own. You know, I mean, no one has ever said that ever. And so with that being the case, I want to wake up one day being a 70-year-old white-haired, and I'm starting, white-haired real estate investor that says, you know, hey, I'm happy. Yeah, exactly. It's experience. But happy to own all of those assets that I own. And I'm sitting here today as a, you know, 45-year-old, slightly salt and peppery investor saying, pretty proud of the portfolio that we've built up.
That's fantastic, man. And I love what you said about the difference between the stock market and real estate, because I do have this conversation with my financial guys that love to talk about the stock market and how it's grown and all this stuff. But, you know, still at the end of the day, I like to own something that's real, similar to what you said, that's unique, tangible. You can touch it. It's got utility and you can use it. But getting somebody else to pay for it and then having that monthly cash flow, but then having an exit at some point in the future.
Yep.
Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it's 15. More than likely, the real estate's doubled and you've paid it down in half.
Yeah, there's four. I talk about the four pillars of real estate when I'm advising clients. It's the appreciation upside, the depreciation or the tax benefits of owning and holding real estate. It's the ability to scale through leverage with banks where it's not even your own money that you're putting into it. And then the last one is cash flow. It's like a high dividend, investment, which you don't normally find in the stock market. Something that pays out a crazy high dividend. You just don't find those in the stock market, but that's what we get when we have well-managed real estate. But my exit strategy, Matt, is to never exit real estate, buy and hold for the long term, and then utilize the tax advantages of step-up basis and cost segregation to minimize my tax burden, and then pass on my assets as a legacy play to my children.
So that step-up basis, are you talking about 1031ing into more projects or bigger, or no?
No. So step-up basis is where the IRS in their tax code talks about when you pass away and leave this earth, which is how I plan to exit not only the earth, but also real estate. At that time, your heirs who inherit the property have to determine basis. Now, remember, basis is determined at the time you acquire the property. So let's say we have, you buy a house for $150,000 effectively. And again, you can get into the nitty gritty because there's depreciation reduces your basis and you can't depreciate land and whatever. But essentially, let's say you have basis of 150,000. Most people depreciate that over 27 and a half years on a straight line depreciation. So that means in 27 and a half years, my basis will be zero. Okay.
That's right.
Now, when we pass on our assets to our heirs via death and my planned exit, they get step-up basis. Their basis is not zero. Their new basis is, let's say I have a portfolio of, call it $10 million, okay? So the basis for all of my assets now is 10 million at the time of my passing. So if the valuation is 10 million, their new basis is 10 million. So if they turn around and sell those assets that year, their basis is 10 million. The sales price is 10 million. So their tax burden is zero because they effectively inherited it at 10 million, they sold it 10 million, there is no gain. So that is the wonder of the tax code, that if you understand it and utilize it, can truly have transformational wealth. Now, obviously, I will be coaching my children, who will be hopefully by the time I pass full grown, adults with their own children. But we'll be coaching them that, hey, when you pass, you get to have your own basis at say 10 million. Now you depreciate those same assets that have already been depreciated. Now you get to depreciate them all over again. And then you leave them to your children. That's the generational wealth play that the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers and the Trumps of the world understand and know and love. But it's the people that just have the short-term mindset that are not thinking with the legacy play. They're thinking, oh man, my assets doubled in value, I'm going to sell it. Okay, well, then you're going to get taxed. I won't get taxed because I'm never going to sell.
That blows my mind. I've been in the game a long time and I've never heard of this part of it. Is there a specific kind of structure or anything that we have to set this up under?
Yeah, I am not an attorney, so I'm not going to start talking through the different ramifications of the estates and planning. There are limitations, right? So you can only do up to, I think 11.5 million per person. So it's like 23 million as a couple. So once you get to 40, $50 million, but most of us don't reach that point anyway. So, and it can be lowered. So let's say I pass away and we've had the left come in and reduced, the estate tax, which currently has a limit up to 23 million, then you would obviously get a lesser amount. But as it sits today, it's about 23 million that is effectively tax free.
Wow. Okay.
So to further that, I would encourage anybody listening to go talk to their CPA, who will explain step-up basis, and an attorney to draft the documents and just get it done correctly. But we use a living trust for our family that just all of my LLCs default into upon passing, and then the trust pays no tax because then you don't have to worry about probate or anything.
Then the trust takes over and it operates the real estate. We went through that about 5-7 years ago. It was a very lengthy process. And yeah, so everybody listening, Mark and I, we're not attorneys, we're not CPAs. We do what those smart people that paid all that money to go to those schools and college and education learn. And we do what they advise. But I would ask you to push back on the legal advice and push back on your CPA advice, because I've had to do that over the years and I didn't really realize you could do that until about 10 years ago. Like, well, what about this? Maybe we can do it this way. Because there's one thing that those people will not do is think creatively like a business owner and entrepreneur will do. And I know you know that.
Super smart advice, Matt. In fact, the biggest one is your CPA. Most people default into just, they graduate from, doing it themselves, doing the tax return themselves, to then, maybe going to, their local H&R Block guy or something like that. If you don't have a real estate savvy CPA doing your tax returns and you're going to become a real estate investor, you really need to level up in that capacity. And you want an investor, you want a CPA that's actually an investor themselves, that understands the tax code in a meaningful way. To say that that what you don't know can hurt you is a gross understatement. If you don't have a CPA that is going to help you through the tax code and the different laws, they say that the first 6 pages of, the IRS code is 600 pages long. The first 6 pages are to say how much you have to pay in tax. The remaining 594 pages are how to avoid or, minimize your tax burden of what you have to pay in the first 6 pages. So, look, I'm not going to go read the tax code, but I'm just going to pay someone that understands it and understands what I do for a living so that they can advise me, to, obviously keep me out of trouble by, aggressively and fairly reducing my tax burden as much as possible.
Fairly. Yeah. That is we're not trying to avoid. I mean, we're trying to avoid paying taxes legally by the laws that are written. That's all we're doing here, is we're following the rules of the road, but understanding how to read those is a little bit difficult. And I have actually had to do some research myself over the years to present things to my CPA. Man, I didn't even know you could do, and it just kind of jogs their memory a little bit. And anyways, and how to maybe make some capital purchases before the end of the year. So there's a lot of ways we can go down this road, because I hate paying taxes. The government has no idea what to do with our money. They'll either give it away or do something stupid with it. And why would I want to pay more? Nobody wants to pay more. We're taxed at every level of everything that we buy. Sales tax, auto, I mean, you name it. live in a house, you're taxed. I mean, if they tax the air, they could figure out how to, or if they could figure out how to do it, they freaking tax the air.
Speaking of air, they're trying to figure out how to tax Airbnb. That's for sure.
That's it, man. They sure are, dude. And that's my space, and I love it. And
Yeah.
the reason I moved into the Airbnb is because I got sick and tired of. I mean, you heard my spiel the other day. I got sick and tired of tenants tearing up my houses, and it's got to be a better way to make more money with the same asset. And so that's kind of what we tweaked. And my wife and I, we've got it figured out, and we're scaling pretty hard. So, yeah, man. So what is it that Mark does that's unique? I mean, you've been in the game a while. You're over 22 years now since your first flip. What is it that makes what you do so unique? That's different.
I think that I think most investors inside CG, even, or the high level investors, are doing it for themselves. Okay, so they own apartment complexes, self-storage facilities, they have fix and flip businesses, wholesale businesses. What we do uniquely is that we actually help others invest in real estate. I feel I feel like my calling is to help and advise, high income, high net worth individuals that have not previously invested in real estate to begin doing so, because there's just so many advantages to real estate as an investment vehicle. So that's kind of where I see myself fitting into the grand scheme of things, is really focusing on trying to drive the education and value proposition around a done with you form of investing. Again, real estate is basically said, the real estate industry is like, hey, you go find a realtor and they've got to find you a deal. And then they leave you at the closing table. Then you've got to get the closing, a title company to help you run through that. Then you've got to go find contractors to help fix and flip the property. Then you've got to go get a property management company to run the property management. Then you've got to get maintenance guys, and just the hassle all along the way. We, our operation here at SBD Housing is such that it's all inclusive, done for you. So our investors from California, New York, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, France, everywhere in the world trust us to invest their capital for them into real estate as a proven vehicle. And so what we do is we set them up with the local LLCs, the banking relationships, the title relationships. We buy assets, we remodel them, we get them rented out, and then we sell those as cash flowing turnkey assets to our investors. And all they have to do is put up their capital and buy the asset. I like to say that SBD is a vehicle powering towards their retirement, but the gasoline that makes the vehicle move is their cash. So as soon as they come up with some cash, we can get closer to their retirement goals through the vehicle that is, SBD Housing.
That's awesome. So how many houses, deals, clients do you have running through this program right now?
So we have about 700 doors under management, and that's increasing, around 100 to 150 a year at the rate we're at right now. We normally sell around 150 turnkey assets each year. That's not true. Probably around 100 turnkey assets and another 50 flips. We buy and sell everything under $200,000 is a perfect turnkey. We can garner enough rental rate to make it a really strong cash flowing property. But anything over 200 normally doesn't meet those threshold, the criteria for us to make it a cash flowing asset. So we do have a small flipping operation where we do fix and flip. And so those ones between 200 and 400,000 will probably, flip, 50 properties a year or something like that. But yeah, that's our core competency. We probably have, 150 to 160 investors that are either comfortable where they're at or in the middle of scaling or just onboarding. Our investors are told from the beginning that having less than 10 assets is a dangerous place to be. If you have 3 or 4 homes and you have one tenant move out, you've got a 30% vacancy factor just from one tenant moving out. That's not our ideal clientele. We like people that have the cash and wherewithal to scale with leverage and enough capital to scale to a meaningful generational wealth legacy play.
Sure.
If we're choosing who we want to work with, I like to work with people that are driving the Mercedes, not the used car, right? So we work with a lot of high income, high net worth individuals that are looking to scale their portfolios and and buy a quality housing in good areas that will stand the test of time. And then we will maintain those relationships from inception all the way through to, hopefully when their children take over.
Man, that's awesome. So you're looking for the client, or you have the clients. They're not buying 1 to 5 houses. They're buying 10, 20, 30, hopefully hundreds of homes from you over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, we don't have an investor that's hit 100 yet, but we have got several over 30, and they're slowly getting there. So, but we have a lot of demand for our product. We're doing in fact, in 2020, we really scaled and started jumping into new construction because we just had so much demand for our services that it's really hard to scale a fix and flip operation. We've tried that. To remodel 200 unique assets that all require decisions and good quality contractors all in 1 year is a challenge that we tried to overcome. And I wouldn't say we failed, but we certainly had some bumps and bruises along the way. What we can scale is new construction, and it's much easier and scalable. So we're currently in the process of scaling but having said that, the new construction single family is very difficult to cash flow. So when we're looking at new construction to scale, we're looking at fourplexes and duplexes versus single family homes. So currently we have remodeled single family homes and new construction duplexes and fourplexes that we have to offer our clientele. And we've got a pretty robust website. If people are curious, Matt, they can go to sbdhousing.com and look at our investment offerings. And just look at what we do. We're a big story brand organization. So I think you'll see from our website that we kind of walk people through the journey that they would come on if they chose to work with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So sbdhousing.com. I'm definitely going to play around on that website afterwards. I'm really curious. So when you take this product, you obviously have your lead generation, your marketing and everything to find these distressed assets, these motivated sellers, because you're probably not buying them from the courthouse steps anymore.
No, that stopped in 2017. Yep.
Yeah. The glory days, right? When nobody wanted the assets. Now everybody wants them because real estate's such a sexy business. But so you've got all this infrastructure. Obviously, if you're doing this much, you got a big payroll. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of systems and processes and leadership and management. What kind of margin is a good candidate for this? Do you guys kind of back into your numbers based off of what the rents are? Or is there a minimum margin threshold that we're looking for? How do you, I guess, more or less asking, how do you, because they're all unique assets. We're not, maybe aside from the new construction, you hit the nail right in the head. Every asset is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So every asset's going to have a little bit different costs associated with it.
Yeah, no, look, my CFO would appreciate that question. We talk about that a lot, and we try and hit 20% gross margins. That's sometimes unattainable in this competitive market, so we're kind of driven down to somewhere around the 16% range most of the time. But if you're looking as an investor, if you're just looking for a return, and you're only getting 10%, it's you can almost go get that in just lending money these days. So if you're going to go through the pain of fixing and flipping, you better be getting something better than that.
Right on. Yeah. And you guys don't wholesale, right? No wholesale game?
We are beginning to use novations as a way for us to better service the clientele. What we were struggling with, Matt, is we would get into the living room quite often, and if it didn't work for our fix and flip game and turnkey or flip, we were unable to help that client. The reason I like novations is that allows us to help that client rather than just saying, sorry, we can't help you. And so, it opens our buy box because suddenly we can, because we are very specific. In fact, even I think on our website, it goes into where we buy, and where we buy is very specific in Kansas City. We don't buy in any high crime zones or inner city areas. We choose not to because we manage the properties. And so if you know Kansas City, 435 Loop is the loop that goes all around the city, and we're on the outskirts of that. So suburban Kansas City is where we operate in the outlying areas. So we're very picky about where we buy for our turnkey investments. So we were turning away too many people, and our leads were kind of getting burned. We had a very high cost of lead or cost per deal, because we were turning away so many of the leads that just didn't fit our buy box. So opening up novations has allowed us to, cater to a wider area, monetize our leads better, and help out our homeowners that are in distress.
I like that. It's one of the primary reasons why we have wholesaling is because we like to use that as a strategy. At least some money put back in the company, and we get to help the client. Now, novations is a new thing. It's a new term. Can you explain to all the listeners here what is a novation? This may be the first time they've ever even heard that word.
Sure. So my good friend Eric Brewer has really popularized the novations inside the real estate arena. But novations are centuries old. This is not anything new, although the irony is novation, or comes from the nova Greek word, which is new, meaning new. So it's anytime you go in and change something within a contract. So the idea is on a novation that you lock up a deal by getting it under contract. You can then also you sign an agreement that allows you to go market that property. You market the property, and then the novation agreement, once signed between you and the seller, allows you to lock up your interests, but then bring the buyer and seller together, and when the secondary buyer, the one that we go find, comes in and actually closes on the transaction. So similar to a wholesale in some respects, only it opens up a greater realm of marketing on the back end that allows you to either put the home on the MLS, get an FHA buyer. It allows us to do some repairs to the home if need be. It allows us to be involved more heavily in the transaction to make sure that we can overcome some of those common objections that would happen in the inspection period or through the negotiation period.
So it really just describes like you just became a real estate agent. What is the big difference between those two?
Well, a real estate agent is only compensated, typically they lock up a house as an exclusive listing agreement. There is no contract to buy the home. They're saying we're just going to go market the property. There is no contract to buy. On a novation, there is a contract to buy. We are going to say we are going to buy that home. But it also allows you to go market it. With a real estate contract, there's no contract to buy. It's an exclusive right to sell that asset at a designated, price window.
Got it. So you're at the kitchen table. You're with the homeowners. They want $200,000. They don't want to deal with appraisers, inspections, anything like that. You're taking that burden off of them. You say, hey, I will give you $200,000, but here's what I'm going to need to do. I'm going to need to bring, a couple of prospective buyers to the property, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can get 250, then you make the spread.
Correct. Yeah, in a roundabout way, that's correct. I mean, the buyer might come in and typically, they'll come in, and the future buyer, the one that we end up marketing and finding, again, the typical seller is unable to market the property and get the word out. So whether you put it on the MLS or not, the idea is that we have such a wide buyer pool that we're going to go and try and get the most amount of money for that property. Now, the 250 in this example that you mentioned would be, hey, it's 250, but I might need the roof put on because it's leaking. I need a new roof put on. So we would take care of any of the repairs. Again, sellers may or may not have those kind of, avenues open to them. Obviously, a roofer is a bad example, but, because that's a phone call. But most of the time, there are minor repairs that need to be done. We can go in, handle those repairs to bring it up to FHA standards, and then close through an FHA or conventional buyer on the back end. So just gives you a lot of flexibility and maneuverability within the transaction to help the homeowner get to their end goal, which is to exit that parcel of real estate.
And so you've just done this. You've added this bolt on to SBD Housing, right? It's not like you're specifically marketing now to these.
No, the messaging is exactly the same, which is, hey, look, we help people exit from difficult housing situations, sometimes financial distress, sometimes physically distressed homes. But all the while, it's just a pain point for homeowners, and we're trying to come in and solve for that pain point.
Emotional distressness. I mean, that's absolutely, man. Well, dude, that's awesome. So you're managing 700 single family doors right now.
That's right. And that's one of my, haven't even really announced this to the team yet, but in the next couple of months, we're going to be rolling out. We have some pretty big dreams and goals for the property management company. It's something that I believe was imminently scalable. and I think has done extremely poorly. Over the last 12 months, our property management team has really transformed that operation. I'm really proud of the way that our property management team has driven to excellence. And I believe that we are getting close to best in class on the property management side of the equation. And I didn't want to entertain scaling that business when we were average. But now that we're getting really, really good at PM, I can see where I will no longer strain the organization by going out and either acquiring another company or opening up our our company to take on assets that are owned by investors outside of the SBD sphere. Because currently the 700 that we manage are only properties that we have bought and rehabbed and brought into our fold ourselves. We do not third-party property manage. So I think there's a massive opportunity for growth there, which I'm really excited about.
That's great. So now you're going to be able to just, or you're entertaining the idea of, since you've got all your processes and systems down, to go get another 50, 100 clients a year on top of what you're already doing. Is that right?
Yeah, so we normally bring on at least 100 doors a year into our property management company. So organically, we'll be at 1,000 doors, within a couple of 2-3 years. I would love to double that and get to 2,000 doors in that same time period by going and finding people that are either unhappy with their current management company or people that we can drive better efficiencies to that might be trying to manage it themselves. And again, we'll be very specific in the same way that I like to deal with a high income, high net worth individual, a sophisticated investor, if you will, on the buy side. Similarly, on the PM side, we're not going to go and just take someone who has 2 doors. That is not our avatar.
Right.
Our investor that we're looking to cater to is someone that has, at least 10 plus doors, but preferably 30, 40, 50 doors, single family, because we do single family extremely well. And if you have an investor that has 100 doors, we know that we can go drive massive value to that investor.
Got it. So help me understand, what kind of value could you offer that? Obviously, there's shitty property managers, so that's probably a bad comparison. But what are some things that you're doing on the property management side, the PM side, that make you guys so unique?
Sure. So the 2 big killers of cash flow for single family homes are vacancy and maintenance. I'll repeat that. The 2 big killers of cash flow are vacancy and maintenance. And so we have literally around the office everywhere. I think it's put up like 3 or 4 different places in our office. It says a vacant home drives no value. It's a constant reminder to our team that a vacant home drives no value to a resident, to an owner, or a property management company. It's a lose, lose, lose. So I'm super proud to say that of 700 doors right now, Matt, do you want to hazard a guess of how many of those are vacant?
Oh, shit.
Keeping in mind, 5% would be what, 35 homes, right?
Yeah, 10.
Less.
Oh my God.
So we have 5 vacancies. So out of 700, it's super strong number that we're really proud of. And again, winter is the toughest time to get these leased out. So we're just operating at a really high level to reduce vacancy and maintenance. So what does that look like? Our leasing team is really dialed in with their marketing messaging. We use, digital lockboxes to increase our showing availability. We no longer use leasing agents. Our leasing agent is in the office. So we've utilized technology in a big way to make it more efficient to lease the units. We've made the resident experience better. So we're making it to where the resident has a great onboarding experience and is very easy and user-friendly. On the maintenance side, we're reducing expenses for the owner in a meaningful way. We've recently hired, I think we have like 8 or 9 different painters, plumbers, electricians, handyman, maintenance guys, all because when you go out, one of the biggest complaints that we get from our owners is, oh my gosh, and this is even just a couple of years ago for us, it was, oh my gosh, you had to repaint the whole house. It was like $3,500, and that was just the bid at the time. During COVID, painting crews were just at such a premium because everyone was redoing their homes.
Yep.
And so we were getting these bids and it was either, okay, get a bid and it was either $3,500 or $3,700. Do you want it done or do you want to wait for a couple of months? Well, if you wait for a couple of months, you've already spent that money, from a vacancy anyway. So we kind of got frustrated and started saying, look, if we could do in-house painting, we'd be able to save our owners money. And as long as it was not a burden to the organization, as long as it was a a cost push or a small win to SBD, then we would scale that. And so we've done that. We've gone out and hired all of those technically skilled contractors to come into the fold so that now we can drive more maintenance savings to our owners. So not only can we control the turn time by reducing it from, let's say, 60 days down to 25 days, turning a unit from getting it from occupancy to occupancy, but we've also reduced the cost associated with turning the unit. So that reduces vacancy and maintenance. So yeah, look, I could go on and on, but we are, the owner reporting, the way that our technology is helping. We're using Loom videos to communicate with our owners now. We're letting them know when things are happening. We're getting better reporting. We're not perfect by any stretch. I mean, I think our team is still striving to grow, but the constant pursuit of excellence is why we're getting better at what we do.
That's awesome, man. So you're a construction company now too. You have in-house everything, bro. And I know that. I know that. So you're saying you have 8 of each one of those trades, or you have all 8 of those trades inside?
Yeah, eight total. We've got 8 in-house service technicians. That I wouldn't say we're a construction company. We're definitely a maintenance company, full-fledged maintenance and repair company. Yep.
So if the bid was $3,500 to the customer before, what is the bid now since you guys are doing the painting?
Yeah, now it's like $1,200. We've literally cut some expenses as much as 2/3.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And you guys mark up those services 10-15% to cover the labor and things like that?
Yeah, something like that. Again, my CFO and the director of property management sat down and did it kind of case by case basis when we bring on employee, what their billable rate is. Like if we're billing out an electrician, the electrician that you're outsourcing might be $110 an hour, $120 an hour retail. So we're going to say, okay, how much of a saving, what can we hire that person on board at? How can we bill them out to make sure that it's a cost savings to the owner? But yeah, I mean, 50% savings to the owner is not unreasonable with all of the hires that we're bringing on board, especially when we've got, I think, 3 or 4 painters, because painting is a necessity to keep our units fresh and looking really good. And the other thing that we do when you're able to do the right thing by going around freshening up the unit, we're really setting the bar for SBD's brand standard of having high quality rental homes, because we put granite, LVP flooring, and fresh coat of paint into all of our rentals. And so when we do that, we're able to drive the rent. We're pushing rents up at a very meaningful level so that our brand standard is such that people are actually looking for our rentals when they come out, because they know it's going to be a high level. So we can push rents in a very meaningful way, as opposed to the tired landlord that just is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to try and do nothing, keep the same carpet, don't change the cabinets, don't change the countertops. The appliances are 1972, but hey, it still works, so I'm not replacing it. And he's going to still get $850 where we're driving to get $1,250 or $1,300 a month in rent.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head with that one, because I'm speaking from personal experience. I had a duplex that we just got done doing. And when I bought it from the guy, he was charging $650 a month in rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And we were able to get $1,600.
Wow.
And it was old and outdated and disgusting and everything like that. And I told him that I got $1,600. He literally wanted to punch me in the face or thought I was lying. I couldn't really tell what it was. And I ended up selling it to somebody, because I'm not really good at the whole property management like you are. We love the Airbnb business because it's just a whole different beast. But so you have HVACs, you have painters, you have carpenters, electricians, plumbers, sewer guys, I'd imagine. I mean, you got the work. So
yeah, we outsource. I mean, look, we outsource a lot of that, but we do, because you want the ability to flex and scale. You don't want to ever, hire a whole bunch of people and then lay them off in the downturn, right? So, or not even downturn, but when you just, let's say we have really good renewal proceedings. That's the other thing. We've been getting really good at asking for renewals and really having a focus on renewing our existing tenants rather than just having them move out and move in. So we're a very owner-centric property management company. But if we had, let's say we go from having 20 turns one month to only 2 the next, you don't want to have to lay people off. So we are, we have the ability, like an accordion, to expand and contract and expand and contract. So we keep our core group of like 8 to 9 guys, and we can always outsource and just maintain the rest of the services for example, we don't own like a sewer camera. Just not something I want to do. I don't do foundations in house. We outsource that to a good foundation repair guy. Although we did have one of our painters learn how to do epoxy injections because that was a value add. So wherever we can, kind of do value adds, we'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, honestly, from the surface level, it sounds that you guys have a squeaky clean, smooth sailing operation to where you can add properties and properties and properties, and it doesn't sound like it's going to miss a beat with everything.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing on a regular basis. We had to build it to scale because our other business is feeding it, right? So you got a property management business over here that every month we've got, turnkey rental properties just getting put in. So as soon as they're done with rehab, the procedures and the processes to get through Salesforce to loop back into Rent Manager, our software on the rental side, there's a lot of working pieces to make it efficient as possible. It's easy to lose one property in 700, right? That just sits vacant if you don't have good procedures.
Yeah.
And knock on wood, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no shit, man. If you only have 5 houses that are vacant right now, and by the time this podcast is over, they're probably going to be full, right?
Well, yes, but then there's probably people that have moved out, and I mean, it's really hard to drive to zero because I'm sure, what are we, the 16th of the month? So, on the 16th of the month, we'll probably have some people moving out in the next 2 weeks. But talked to my leasing agent this morning, and Krista said that we've got a fourplex that we basically just went live with, and she's already rented out 3 of the units just today that we just went live with. So yeah, we're pretty good at the leasing side of things.
Man, that's awesome. So how big is the company? How many employees do you guys have right now?
Currently we're at 30 with about 3 VAs. So, that's comfortable side. The property management division, I think, is about 18 of that, and then 12 on the fix and flip and operations side.
Man, that's fantastic. Sounds like you guys have built a pretty good operation, dude. I love that you jumped on here so willingly and spilled the beans on everything about your company, and I truly appreciate it, dude. Appreciate the friendship and everything we've got going on at CG. I'm just so blessed to be a part of that organization.
Happy to help, man.
Yeah, how long have you been in CG? I forgot to ask that one.
I think this is my 7th or 8th year. What would 2016? Yeah, so 8th year. And my 2nd year on the leadership team. So it's been a full cycle for me. Came on there into the organization of Collective Genius at a time, as a member at a time when I was, I didn't realize the flaws in your business model. I was still buying on the courthouse steps in 2015, because I was still buying heavily on the courthouse steps, and everyone was like, man, how do you get your deals? Do you market? Do you direct mail market? I'm like, no, I just kind of raise my hand and I get as many as I want. Like, what do you mean? Is there no competition on the courthouse steps? And, like anything, there was an ability for me to kind of look at the other markets and talk to, guys in California and New York and Phoenix and Florida, and they could tell me how they used to have no one there, and now there's 20 or 30 people bidding on the courthouse steps. So I saw the writing on the wall and was able to pivot away from a reliance of buying on the courthouse steps. So CG really helped save my business. And then secondarily, it was in 2018 when I was really going through a really tough time with just understanding the flaws in my personality type and my business leadership style, which I just am awful at accountability. And, as a CEO and visionary, understanding that I don't need to be that. I just need to have someone around me and surround myself with people that can help me with the accountability. And so, bringing on Chris Johns, whose strength is accountability and self-deprecating humor, I will add, was a big step for me, and that was also CG kind of driven. So I was kind of one of the first ones to bring on a COO, and have obviously spoke about that ad nauseum. But that was a big lift for me. And then just getting help at each of these stages along the way. I mean, it just helps to be able to go to an organization of high-level individuals and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Can you help me? And it's always a resounding yes. This guy's been through what you've gone through and willing to help. So for me to be asked to be on the leadership team and now be able to help people in that same regard is a blessing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel Even Blair says it. Like I come back from these events just like, re-energized. I'm so blessed to be a part of it. And I've never been a part of an organization like that. Most of the masterminds and the things that I went to in the past 15 years, it was always there's always a back end product. There's always a bigger sale. It's like shit, man. I mean, I'm here to learn and collaborate and stuff. And it always feels like I keep getting pitched a different product. And then um, I was turned on and to Leon, and we sat down, we had the call, and I'm like, man, I just felt like this was for me. And I'm so glad I took the leap of faith and joined the organization, and looking forward to see where my business is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, being a part of.
So am I, my friend. Yeah, you've done wonders. It's not many that can pivot completely away from the long-term rentals and go all Airbnb, but you've done it with great success. I'm excited to see what the future holds for you.
We're going to keep doing it, man. Hopefully play around in Kansas City a little bit too some more. So
yeah, we'll have to catch up when you come through next.
100%, dude. Well, dude, thanks for being on. Appreciate it, man. Again, Real Estate and Whiskey, Matt Hayes with Marck de Lautour. Thanks, man.